Hi, my name's Megan.
Hi, my name is Bianca.
Hi, I'm Maria Pena.
I'm Michael Voorhees.
I'm Max Van Witzenberg. Tonight on 60 Minutes.
Welcome to 60 Minutes. Tonight, we dive into voter fraud, a controversial topic from 2020 with Max Van Witzenberg.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Van Witzenberg, let's revisit the aftermath of the 2020 presidential election.
Sure.
Tensions between left and right-wing voters are high, and Donald Trump claims that the election was stolen. Does this claim have any merit?
Well, that's a good question. Many Americans weren't quick to believe that the 2020 election was stolen, and their skepticism had good reason. Both conservative and liberal litigation groups found no widespread voter fraud. The only fraud they found were from individual ballots.
Interesting. With this lack of factual foundation, how did voters respond to Donald Trump?
Voters were still heavily influenced by Donald Trump's words, and 2/3 of them believed that the results of the 2020 election were illegitimate. However, we should keep in mind that the disputed ballots in question made up less than 1% of Joe Biden's victory margin.
I see. One more question. How heavily should voter fraud weigh on our minds on election day, and how can we consider voting a form of self-improvement?
It's another good question. Voter fraud should not weigh on the minds of voters as election day approaches and voters go to the polls. Our election system is strong and it's resilient. When a voter votes, their ballot doesn't contribute to some corrupt election system. Rather, it helps to mitigate the effect of those isolated voter fraud incidences. And when you vote, you are practicing self-improvement if you weren't a voter before, because you began holding your representatives accountable and seeing the policies that reflect your beliefs in action.
So you claim that people should be actively fighting against antimicrobial agents?
That is correct.
Can you explain to us what an antimicrobial agent is?
So an antimicrobial agent is bacteria that has become resistant to antibiotics.
And where do these come from?
So as the CDC has reported, the spread of antibiotic resistance is related to both the poultry and produce industries. In the rearing of land and water animals, antibiotics are used to kill harmful bacteria. However, it is common that they are misused and treated on entire populations.
Why is this an issue and why should people care? Doesn't this mean that the whole population would be safer from bad bacteria?
So no, actually it's quite the opposite. If the whole population is treated without necessity, the bacteria is able to evolve, becoming resistant towards the antibiotics. Then these bacteria can easily spread, leading to untreatable diseases that can cause death.
So how would everyday people go about limiting their exposure to these harmful bacteria?
So you can implement a household water filtering system. The World Health Organization suggests Aquapack or LifeStraw. Another fix is to simply check the labels on food when you're shopping at the grocery store. If you see the phrase, no antibiotics added, then you should be safer.
Thank you for your insight and advice into how we can all improve in our awareness and prevention of this issue.
Based on your research, what do you think it means to be happy?
Well, the goal of every human at the end of the day is to be happy, and we live in a society filled with distractions, hyper-fixated on consumerism. Additionally, social media has created a false narrative of happiness. I mean, you click on social media and it seems like everyone's happy, but in reality, the least amount of people than ever are happy.
Yeah. So according to your article, there are different types of goods. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so there are 3 types of goods. Goods of the soul, goods of the body, and external goods. And modern culture prioritizes goods of the body and external goods. So for example, there's a hyperfixation on a culture filled with working out and like achieving a certain body type, or like success is only achieved with external goods such as money. And if you have a certain amount of money, you live in a certain kind of house. But in reality, goods of the soul and being in tune with your soul is how you achieve happiness.
Right. And then so the true way to happiness is prioritizing goods of the souls. What are examples of how people can implement that in their everyday life?
First of all, just reflection, like taking time to practice mindfulness through meditation or spending time in nature. Additionally, relationships, like forging meaningful connections with people is how you are in tune with yourself as well. And just balancing your life, like balancing work with time spent with loved ones and time spent with yourself.
How necessary is it to focus so much attention on root cause analysis when it seems to be such an obvious step in the process? While it may seem trivial at first glance, focusing on finding root causes is critical to a project. The temptation when we see a system failing to function correctly is to immediately jump to a solution before asking why that failure happens in the first place. While this may temporarily solve what appears to be the problem, other issues will continue to emerge until the true problem is solved. What are some strategies to determine underlying causes? The founder of Toyota developed a method called the 5 Whys method. We simply continue to ask why until we arrive at a problem that can be directly acted upon. For example, if a car doesn't start, we can ask, why doesn't the car work? Because my battery is dead. Why is it dead? Because the alternator doesn't function. Why doesn't it function? Because it's well beyond its service life. Why is it beyond its service life? Because the car isn't being maintained. We can now act on this realization, and in doing so, we'll solve all the previous issues. How relevant is this information outside the field of engineering? Focus on root causes should be a high priority for all fields that work to solve problems. For example, in the field of psychology, research by the CDC and National Institute of Mental Health reveals a recent rise in adults seeking mental health treatment and a rise in antidepressant prescriptions, but also an increase in the suicide rate. Now, I'm not a professional in the field of psychology. However, this data suggests that while antidepressants may temporarily benefit patients, they may not be a solution to the true problems at hand. A stronger focus on root cause analysis may provide beneficial insights to this issue, as well as various problems across a multitude of disciplines.
You claim that social media has changed the way we perceive ourselves and others. How do you think this has affected society?
Well, if we only see each other's highlight reels on Instagram or Snapchat or any kind of social media, it's really hard to gain perspective and kind of gather, and if you only see those positive aspects, it's hard to gather like intel on like how someone's actually doing. So that can make people feel really inadequate and lower their self-esteem.
What steps can people take to mitigate the negative aspects of social media on their mental health?
Sure, by setting boundaries and prioritizing real-life interactions instead of virtual ones, we can really create stronger interactions and connections between ourselves and others. And if you make it a habit to practice mindful usage and taking breaks too, it can really help to feel clear-headed and taking breaks to just like reset.
You claim that individuals can set boundaries. How can communities as a whole address the challenges of social media?
Yeah, communities can foster stronger interpersonal connections by fostering offline engagement and promoting digital literacy, and sometimes legal action can help too.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes.